Bastion Station didn't sleep. It powered down in phases, dimming one vector while another lit up. Volca moved through its arterial halls with practiced rhythm, passing faceless operations staff and low-grade tacticians who didn't know her name. That was by design. The station had grown over decades, slowly, modularly, and without a master plan. Its layout was the result of need, not elegance. A spine of strategy wings stretched out behind the docking arms. Habitat rings floated above processing clusters. The most secure rooms were buried deep in the station's core, behind a lattice of power routes, shielded comm stacks, and political dead zones. The outer concourse glowed with company-safe blue, matched to human circadian tolerances. She carried no tablet, no data slate. Everything important was already in her head. It wasn't arrogance. It was necessity. You couldn't leak what you didn't record. Her day began at Anchor 6, where supply chain continuity reports filtered in from the CHAR system. 2 jump convoys off course. No crew losses. No questions. She nodded at the summaries, signed off without comment. No one asked for more. They knew better. Next, a walk through the observation deck. Floor-to-ceiling glass simulated with dynamic shielding. She didn't look out. The void beyond Bastion was irrelevant. Optics. Let the junior liaison stare into it and feel small. Her job wasn't awe. Her job was ratio management, threshold control, and narrative containment. If the void ever stared back, the story would already be written. Her third stop was less routine. Communications Relay 7B, a closed node tied to Deepwatch satellites. It was only partially on the books. No one logged entry unless flagged by Directorate authority. Volca keyed in her override, waited for retinal confirmation, and stepped into the signal cradle. A single blue glyph pulsed on the chamber's matte black screen. Contacting Kensington Ledge. Status pending uplink. Receiver not verified. The line never completed. Volca stood in silence, not impatient, not expectant, just still. 60 seconds passed, then 90. She waited for the null return packet, then closed the channel. Still nothing. Not a flicker of acknowledgement from the Kensington Ledge. No update bursts, no telemetry trickle from the edge of 33D, not even static, just the silence of unconfirmed presence. The tech on duty sat behind a sealed screen. He watched the process without comment. When she left, he didn't speak. She appreciated that. Halfway back to central operations, her neural implant buzzed once behind her left ear. A subtle internal vibration calibrated to bypass external sensors. Priority directive. No context, no heading, just a rotating glyph in a single line of text. Class 1 access required. Immediately! Volca turned on her heel without breaking pace. 12 minutes later, she entered a secured lift. 10 floors down. 1 biometric scan, then a handprint, then a spoken phrase. Directive architecture defines truth. The door slid open. The Class 7 secure briefing room was cold by design. Thermal regulated, air still. Nothing inside that could record. Nothing that could leak. A shallow curve of glass inlaid with hollow nodes rimmed the center table. Volca took her place without ceremony. She did not sit. There was no screen. Only a recessed speaker in the ceiling. After a pause, a tone clicked on. Low, brief, authoritative. The voice followed. Male modulated, but that meant nothing. Synthetic inflection. Filtered tone. Layered encryption across at least 5 relay points. She would never know where the speaker physically was. That wasn't the point. The voice said, "Proceed." Volca straightened. No change in contact status with the Kensington Ledge. No data receipt. Last verified vector places them en route to Sector 33D via passive trajectory. No deviation observed before signal loss. Elapsed time since last ping? The voice asked. 38 hours. Expected? No, she said. Not unexpected either. There was a pause, not out of surprise, but analysis. When the voice returned, it had shifted a register down, deeper, closer to decision-making mode. Continue. Volca's hands rested at her sides. No orbital broadcasts, no burst comms. Passive monitoring remains clear of detection. No hostile footprint on Bastion networks. Local packet security holding. And you believe Rook has reached the object? I do. Alive? Presumed. Another pause. Then, your recommendation? Volca took a breath. We maintain silence. We do not reach out. We wait to see what Rook brings back. If he makes it back. There was a long beat of nothing. Then the voice gave a single word. Understood. You understand why this matters, the voice said, lower now, like it had moved into a deeper filterscape. Volca absorbed each syllable. This wasn't just protocol. It was policy, geopolitics, a legacy of trembling priorities. Yes, she said. I do. A muted hum filled the silence for a moment. Let's address the agreement, the voice continued. Explain its core terms. Volka's pulse went silent. She'd rehearsed this. She'd seen transcripts, dried history logs layered with corporate redactions, but it was time to speak them again. It's a deterrent pact, 30 years old. Vantadyne or its predecessor entities promised not to cross the Sekatoan line, a spatial boundary acknowledged by the non-human entity. No military assets, no intelligence forays, no expansion adjacencies. In exchange, we received guarantees, passive non-intervention on their side. The voice paused. For once, Volka almost mistook the silence for approval. Then it spoke. And Vestan reach? Civilian settlement, Volk said. Settled 18 years ago, Earth approved. At the time, outside Vantadyne's direct remit. They were granted soft license subcontracts via the United Earth Civil Expansion Board. And because the site was civilian, dusty, and compliant, it passed under our radar. Vestan Reach sits close enough to the line that any activity there risks reinterpretation. The voice returned, tighter now, but there was an alien satellite above it. Yes, Volka replied, an unknown construct in geosynchronous orbit. We don't know how long it was observing the colony for, but it was transmitting a tight band signal toward 33D. Not drift, not noise, deliberate. And the state of the colony when the Kensington Ledge arrived? Gone, she said flatly. Impact craters, scorched habitats, no survivors, no distress signals, no evidence of human engagement. Whatever happened, it wasn't a pirate raid, and it wasn't anything of ours. There was a faint modulation in the speaker, and then it fired on us. Yes. Volka's tone did not waver. Unprovoked, as soon as the ledge began active scan, the satellite targeted them with directed energy. Hull scorched. Casualties reported. Rook retaliated and destroyed it. Debris was retrieved. And you call that subtle? The voice was sharper now. Volka hesitated just long enough to choose her phrasing. It's not subtle. It's controlled. Whoever built it knew we'd find it eventually. Does this constitute violation of the agreement? The voice pressed. Volka's reply came measured, deliberate. It constitutes a breach of spirit, not letter. The pact bars us from intrusion beyond the line. It says nothing about them watching from ours, or striking first. A breath, synthetic, filtered, rolled across the speaker. And you think that distinction will hold? Volki allowed herself a small exhale. It won't matter if we mishandle the narrative. The voice went quiet for a beat. Then, Vestan Reach is on our side of the Sekatoan line. Barely, Volki agreed, but barely still counts. Another silence, heavier this time, as if something at the other end was being weighed on scales too old to recall who built them. Issue, the voice said finally, is not where the satellite sat. It's what we do next. She felt the chill behind those words. Choices branching out like unseen filaments, each with their own consequence. We need deterrence, Volka said carefully. But quiet deterrence. We posture. We do not provoke. Posture. Exactly. Publicly, the 4th Strategic Reserve Fleet is a routine rotational deployment. Privately, they're on escalation standby. The 4th Strategic Reserve Fleet is already en route, the voice said, as if reading her next thought. 36 days to Bastion. Enough time to position assets, prepare denial protocols. Volki didn't react outwardly, but she noted the detail. The 4th Strategic Reserve Fleet arriving at Bastion would take a bit more containment. The voice added, tone narrowing into something colder. If Rook brings something back, an object, a signal, data, will you endorse interpretation or deny it? Volki's answer was calm, clipped, unwavering. Interpretation belongs to the company. He brings facts. We decide meaning. A faint static tremor in her implant told her the session was ending. She forced her breathing to remain level, suppressing the urge to feel relief. Very well. A final click. The lights dimmed by 3%. Signature fade, signaling closure. Volka stayed still in the quiet, staring at nothing. The words replayed behind her eyes. Deterrence, not confrontation. Denial, not transparency. She could still feel the weight of what was being set in motion, pressing heavy on her chest. Her hands remained flat on the table's edge, fingers relaxed only by conscious effort. Somewhere in the walls, the ventilation shifted timbre as the room rebalanced its air cycle. The hum was constant, but the cold was deeper now. She closed her eyes briefly, not to rest them but to silence the images in her head. 30 years of policy briefings, redacted memos, and theoretical maps of the Sekatoan line flooded back. They had talked about the agreement so many times in abstract, as though it were just an artifact from a bygone negotiation. A line on a chart, a ceremonial phrase in a databank. Now it was alive again, sharp-edged, demanding attention. The fragments of debris Rook had retrieved, the silence of Vestan reach, the simple fact that a satellite had fired on a company cruiser. These were not hypotheticals. Her voice slipped out, low and unbidden, carrying to no one. Did they always know this would come? She waited for the words to dissipate into the still air. A hollow echo answered her from the curved glass around the table, and then the deeper truth surfaced, unprompted, shaping itself in her mind with a clarity that felt cruel. They'd known this would happen. 30 years, and all they'd done was prepare the denial. She opened her eyes and drew a slow breath, standing carefully from the table. Her body ached in small places she didn't want to name. She was about to turn toward the door when it opened with the softest hiss. Sand stepped in as though she had been waiting just outside. And maybe she had. Listening through channels Volka wasn't cleared to know existed. Her posture was exact, her uniform immaculate. She didn't rush and didn't offer greeting. The door sealed behind her, cutting off the corridor like the severing of a thread. Volka straightened, though she didn't need to. "You move quietly," she said. San allowed herself the faintest suggestion of a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You didn't expect me?" Her voice was low, level, surgical. Everything about her was deliberate. "I expected to be alone for longer," Volka replied. San advanced halfway into the room, her boots making no sound on the matte flooring. She glanced once at the table, the hollow nodes still faintly pulsing with residual encryption cycles, and then back to Volka. "I take it the Directorate is satisfied with your containment posture?" Volka studied her for a long second. There was no way San should have known the topic of the call. Not unless she had clearance equal to or beyond the unseen voice. But that was San. Internal compliance didn't need to ask permission. "Satisfied enough," Volka said finally. "For now." San clasped her hands lightly behind her back. Her head tilted a fraction as if appraising Volka's temperature, her resolve. "They'll want a debrief when he returns. A controlled one." Volka let out a breath, barely audible. "You're assuming he will return." San's gaze didn't flicker. "I assume outcomes until proven otherwise. That is how we plan." "And if he doesn't?" San gave a faint shrug. "Then the narrative writes itself, a tragic loss in uncharted space. No further questions." Volka turned back toward the table, letting her fingers brush the cool surface as if it might anchor her. "You heard everything?" "I hear what I need to," San said. "You're handling the politics. I handle the risk. Together we keep the company intact." Volka considered the weight in those words, the simplicity masking the threat they both knew. She turned back to face her. "You want to be in the room." "When he docks," San confirmed. "When they bring whatever they found, data, wreckage, survivor testimony, I'll be there, to ensure no one says what shouldn't be said." Volka felt her jaw tighten. She imagined Rook stepping off the ledge, eyes shadowed from whatever he had seen in 33D, carrying evidence he couldn't yet understand, and San, standing in the corner of the debriefing chamber, listening, cataloging, deciding which truths would be allowed to exist. She didn't answer immediately. She watched San instead, letting the silence stretch like a wire between them. San didn't blink. "I won't interfere with your narrative," she said, "but I will control the room." Volka thought about the call, about the voice's parting words. Interpretation belongs to the company. Rook would bring facts, but facts were only raw materials. What they became depended on who handled them. Finally, Volka nodded once. "Very well," she said. "You'll have your chair." San inclined her head, a motion so small it could have been imagined. Then she turned toward the door, the seal hissing open again. She paused at the threshold. "You did well," she said without looking back. "But you know as well as I do. He's bringing something." Volka didn't move. "I know," she said softly. The door closed. The room was silent again, the dimmed lights casting long shadows across the glass table. Volka remained standing, breathing steady, but her pulse carried the rhythm of a clock she couldn't stop. She stared at the blank hollow nodes until they shut down completely, leaving nothing but her reflection in the curve of the glass.